Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so have you ever caught yourself doing the creeping walk? You know, the exact one I'm talking about. You're walking through your living room, you spot someone passed out on the couch, and instantly, like literally without even thinking, your knees bend a little deeper, your weight shifts to the balls of your feet, and suddenly you're moving like you're starring in a high-stakes spy thriller trying to bypass laser security. We've absolutely all been there. We look totally ridiculous, completely changing our whole physical presence just because another human being in the room happens to have their eyes closed. It's this hilarious, shared habit that kind of unites us all. But why exactly do we do it?
I mean, think about the last time you walked past someone sleeping, or maybe even just walked past a closed bedroom door where you knew someone was napping. If someone asked you a question right then, you probably answered in this hushed, super dramatic whisper. But why on earth do we compulsively whisper when walking past a sleeping person, especially when they're in another room completely out of earshot and, snoring loud enough to rattle the windows? They obviously couldn't hear a normal conversation from across the room anyway, yet our voice volume drops to this barely audible rasp. We literally treat sleeping humans like they possess some kind of superhuman ultrasonic hearing.
Okay, let's dive into this, and let's just take a second to appreciate the absurd, completely illogical things we automatically do around napping strangers. We tiptoe past the couch like the floorboards are suddenly made of bubble wrap. If we need to communicate with someone else in the room, we resort to using this wildly exaggerated, totally made-up sign language. We're mouthing words so aggressively our jaws hurt, pointing frantically at everyday objects. We whisper to someone 20 feet away, fully aware they can't understand a single word we're saying. And perhaps the most bizarre one of all, dropping our voice into this hushed reverence when we walk past a total stranger's sleeping baby in a stroller at a loud, crowded coffee shop. It makes absolutely zero logical sense.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sharp contrast between what we think we're doing and what's actually happening. Because if you ask anyone why they whisper around a sleeping person, they'll give you the logical assumption, right? Oh, I'm just being polite and respectful. I don't want to wake them. But the neurological reality, as science shows us, is way, way weirder. It's not just simple politeness. When you see someone sleeping, your nervous system is helplessly simulating their sleep state. You aren't consciously deciding to be quiet. Your brain is literally bypassing your conscious choice and physically mirroring the low-energy, quiet state of the person right in front of you.
For a long time, people just assumed this was, a parental instinct, like some biological imperative to keep our offspring asleep so we could finally get just 5 minutes of peace. But a brilliant piece of research from 2019 by Meredith Meyer completely busted that simple parental instinct myth. Her experiment showed that even childless adults do this exact same bizarre whispering routine around sleeping infants they have absolutely no relation to. A total stranger who literally owes this baby nothing will automatically drop their voice the moment they walk past. So if it's not a parental instinct, and it's not just a conscious choice to be polite, what exactly is driving this reflex?
Well, to really understand this, we have to look at a clinical concept called behavioral contagion. It's defined as the spontaneous, unsolicited, and uncritical imitation of another's behavior. I actually just love the dry, academic tone of this definition compared to the absolute comedy of what it actually looks like in real life. Uncritical imitation, meaning your brain doesn't stop to think, hey, I'm 30 feet away, I don't need to whisper. It just spontaneously and completely without your permission decides to imitate the low arousal state of the person napping on the recliner. It's the exact same psychological phenomenon that causes people to yawn when they see someone else yawn, or to subconsciously slow down on a highway when the cars around them are driving slowly. And this ties directly into what psychologists call the chameleon effect. So this is the subconscious imitation of gestures, speech patterns, or attitudes. Usually this happens in social situations to build rapport and social cohesion, right? You're talking to a friend, they cross their arms, so you cross your arms. They lean in, you lean in. But when applied to someone sleeping, it's honestly hilarious. Our highly evolved, deeply intellectual brains are basically acting like compulsive copycats just to fit in with the vibe of the room. The room says sleep, so our brain forcefully dials down our vocal cords and makes us walk on our tiptoes. And it's all in this desperate, subconscious attempt to synchronize with a person who isn't even awake to appreciate the effort.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how this happens inside your head. We can look to researchers Vittorio Galise and Alvin Goldman, who explain the magic of the mirror neuron system. They note that
Every time we are looking at someone performing an action, the same motor circuits that are recruited when we ourselves perform that action are concurrently activated. Basically, in other words, when you observe someone doing something, your brain fires the exact same neurons as if you were doing it. So when you look at a sleeping person, your mirror neurons start lighting up like a Christmas tree, simulating their relaxed, motionless state. Your brain is essentially practicing being asleep, which is what makes being loud and energetic feel incredibly unnatural in that specific moment.
This brings us to a really fascinating excerpt from a University of Michigan research paper on empathy, explaining what they call neural self-other overlap. Through perception action mechanisms, your brain actually overlaps your sense of self with the person you're observing. Your neural representations are physically mapping the state of that guy napping on the couch. You don't just see him sleeping, your brain activates its own internal concepts and physical memories of what it literally feels like to sleep. Your body begins to adopt that quiet, minimized presence, because on a strict neurological level, the boundary between your state of being and their state of being gets temporarily blurred.
And this whole mechanism is part of a much larger framework called the simulation theory of empathy. It suggests that humans anticipate and make sense of the behavior of others by activating mental processes that simulate that behavior. So when we tiptoe and whisper, we're experiencing a very real form of motor mimicry and physical empathy. You aren't just being nice, you are helplessly wired to mimic the physical conditions of those around you. You lower your voice, and you tread lightly because your nervous system is literally simulating the low arousal, highly vulnerable state of sleep. You're physically projecting their mental state right onto your own body. Let's move to and see how this builds into something even bigger. Let's zoom way, way out. 300,000 years. That is the number of years modern humans have been roaming this planet. And this is where the explanation for our bizarre whispering reflex goes from quirky neuroscience to a profound story of ancient survival. Because this compulsive tendency to physically simulate other people's conditions, it didn't just evolve so we wouldn't annoy our roommates during a Sunday afternoon nap. No, it evolved because, for the vast majority of human history, syncing up with the physical state of the people around you was literally a matter of life and death. I mean, think about our ancestors 300,000 years ago on this evolutionary timeline. If you were walking through the tall grass and the person in front of you suddenly froze and dropped low to the ground because they spotted a predator, you didn't have time to ask, hey, why are we stopping? Your mirror neurons forced you to instantly imitate their stillness. 10,000 years ago, in early settlements, staying dead silent when others were quiet kept the whole group safe from nighttime threats. And today, that exact same life-or-death evolutionary instinct is what causes us to whisper pointlessly to a sleeping baby in a perfectly safe, climate-controlled, modern living room. We are literally using ancient survival hardware to navigate past a napping relative in a recliner.
So the crucial point is this. Your body treats a sleeping baby, or, a napping stranger on an airplane, the exact same way it treats a predator in the grass. From an evolutionary standpoint, a sleeping member of your tribe is vulnerable. Being loud and drawing attention to a sleeping person would have been incredibly dangerous in prehistory. So, your nervous system is hardwired to suppress your own noise and movement when you encounter a sleeping human. It was a brilliant survival advantage that kept our ancestors alive. Today, of course, it just makes us look very, very silly as we silently mime our coffee orders so we don't accidentally wake someone up.
Which leaves us with a final, maybe somewhat unsettling question to ponder. The next time you find yourself tiptoeing across the carpet and aggressively whispering to your partner because the dog is asleep on the rug, ask yourself, are you really in control of your own body? Or are you just a helplessly empathetic caveman in a modern living room following a 300,000-year-old script that your brain executes totally without your permission? It turns out our deep-seated urge to connect, to mirror, and to protect is completely baked into our biology. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, remember to tread lightly out there.